Hi, I'm Melinda. I'm a life coach.
Hi, I am Melena. I'm a stay-at-home mom.
We are sisters. As sisters, we want to explore and share ways heaven helps us as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Welcome back to Heaven's Help, where we share ways we see Heaven's help in our lives. Today we have two special guests with us, James and Cheryl Hendricks. James and Cheryl were married in San Diego on April Fool's Day, 2003, and they have three children. Cheryl is a school teacher, a wonderful baker. She serves in our stake primary presidency, and she has saved my patootie many times. She also has a beautiful singing voice. James enjoys data analysis, audiobooks, collecting watches, and teaching in primary. He too has saved my patootie on several occasions. He has been such a great influence on some of my boys, including my son, who is serving in the San Diego area. Today, they have agreed to share an incredible experience they had with the heavens helping them. So if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe so that others can hear the messages of ways that our heavenly parents help us in our lives. With that being said, James and Cheryl, what would you like to share with us today?
Well, we had an experience, a rather serious experience, a little over 10 years ago in 2014 that impacted both of us. So we'll be able to share the experience, and then from both sides, what we experienced, what we were going through. So before this, though, I'd like to kind of set a little bit of context for how I approached what happened. When I was a teenager, and I think this is common to most teenagers, is you think a lot of, or you focus a lot on mortality and the world and your place in it. And at that time, I felt, I had an impression, and I don't that I wouldn't live very long. And I don't know if that was, again, just teenagers being teenagers, if it was the spirit letting you know, glimpsing your future, but I was really infatuated with, like William Blake, Tiger, Tiger, Burning Bright, or Dylan Thomas's Rage Against the Dying of the Light. And as I reflected on this and thought on it, again, as a teenager, it's like, okay, you probably lived to around 40 years old, so make sure that you live the best life you can. Get all the experience you can, because you're going to burn brightly and then go. So I did. I did. I had this checklist of what I wanted to accomplish, what I wanted to do, and I was going through it. And sometimes it was in the back of my mind, but you forget about things. Well, after I got out of college, had a job. I was working for a company and was on a golden path. I just getting promoted, going through just fine. And they said, we want to make you an area manager. Hey, this is great. Big step up, big promotion, more money. And there were two offices that were open and a third that was going to open. It was Boise, Idaho, and Spokane, Washington were open. And then they were going to open a new one in Renton. And I was going to have my choice of which one I wanted to have. We were living in Lakewood at the time. Did I want to stay in Western Washington? Did I want to move to Idaho? Do I want to live in Eastern Washington, which we both decided was the right way to go? So I moved over to Eastern Washington by myself and was working there, working hard. I rented a room from somebody and was in the room, but basically it was a place for me to sleep. I was working 14, 16-hour days while my family was in Western Washington, in Lakewood, setting up renters for our home, wrapping things up so they could transition over. So they were able to come over, and I was still working, and it was insane. One of the things I said, if we moved over, I'd really like to go and attend the Spanish branch, because I speak fluent Spanish, and I wanted my children to have that exposure to culture, to other cultures. So when they meet somebody, it's like, hey, you're a friend, or hey, you're new. This is awesome. Instead of, oh, you're different. I don't want to be around you because you're different. So we attended the Spanish branch. The bishop of that, or the branch president of that Spanish branch, was a doctor. And I was just talking with him and saying, man, doc, I'm feeling really tired. I'm tired all the time. He goes, well, what's work like? And I'm like, well, I work in 14-hour days, 6 days a week, and then like 4 or 6-hour days on Sundays. I mean, you see me get up and leave sacraments because they're calling me, and I'm having to deal with things. He goes, well, you're probably just tired. You need to work less. And I'm like, I can't do that. He goes, well, okay. Well, I'm not sure if I've been trying to think if he took a blood test then or not. But he said, you're tired. What's your diet like? Well, I eat a lot of fish and chicken, because I'm trying to be healthy. I drink a lot of energy drinks because I'm working a lot, and my days start super early. And he goes, well, I want you to eat more steak. I want you to eat more hamburgers. I want you to eat more bacon. And I'm going, oh, this is great. You're the best doctor in the world. This is wonderful things, for a guy to want to eat. So started doing that, and I was still just really tired. Well, Memorial Day 2014 comes around, and it's my birthday weekend, and wake up that morning, and I'm just tired, and I'm cold. And as Cheryl can attest, I don't run cold. I'm very exothermic. I'm always shedding heat, really hot. And I was just cold. And so I'm laying under our blankets, just shivering. And she goes, boy, your breath is really bad. I'm like, well, it is the morning. She goes, you need to go brush your teeth. Okay, absolutely. Go brush my teeth. So I brush my teeth and I come back. And she said I looked like a vampire because there was blood in my mouth. And I'm going, I didn't brush that hard, and my gums are okay. This is weird. So then I was like, okay, I need to go to sleep. Is it okay if the kids, if anything happens with the kids, let me know. So she has her laptop up, just gets on her laptop and starts Googling bloody teeth. What is it? What was it? Bloody mouth? Bloody teeth? Tired and cold. And it came up, in WebMD, leukemia. And so she tried different things. Every time it came up, leukemia. So she told me, hey, honey, I think you have leukemia. And I'm like, what's that? She goes, oh, it's cancer of the blood. And I'm going, why do you think this? Well, WebMD. And I'm like, okay, whatever. How was that going to know? She goes, I really think you need to go see a doctor. And I, again, being a guy, I don't like to see doctors. Part of that, or a large part of that, is they're the ones that are most likely to poke me with a needle. And that's one of my greatest fears, is being poked with a needle. And I'm like, I don't want to see a doctor. She goes, well, would you go see the branch president? I'm going, you know what? He's a doctor. I kind of like that guy. Yeah, okay, I'll go see him. So I scheduled an appointment to go see this, the doctor, my branch president. So I go in, he goes, hey, so what am I seeing you for today? And I go, well, these are the symptoms. I was cold, I was tired, I brushed my teeth and I wouldn't stop bleeding. My wife says I look like a vampire. And then she Googled it, and it said, I have leukemia. So I'm here today because my wife's making me come because she thinks I have leukemia because the internet told her so. And he laughed and I laughed. We all laughed at the silliness of it. And he took some blood, and then he did some tests of my my abdomen, my nodes, my lymph nodes. And he goes, "You'll hear from me in a couple days. Don't worry about it. Just go home, rest, take things easy." Sure. So I went back, and I'm not sure it was I think it was the next day, I get a call from an oncologist. And I'm going, okay, one, what's an oncologist? Why are they calling me? And two, they're saying it's for my blood, the results for my blood test. I'm going, okay, if it's not some nurse practitioner or PA calling from the doctor's office, then this is pretty serious. So I took the call, and they let me know that I had leukemia and I needed to come in right away. I went, okay. So I went in and met with the doctor. Said, "You have leukemia. Do you know what that is?" No idea. He goes, "What's cancer of the blood?" I'm like, okay, I know when you get cancer, you get growths. Are there like growths in my blood? Very ignorant. He goes, "Nope. It's your blood cells aren't operating how they should. They're dying off, and you're not building more. Your the red blood cells aren't clotting because you don't have enough iron to build enough platelets. So what you have isn't functioning right. It's not able to take oxygen throughout your body, which is why you're feeling tired, because your muscles don't have the oxygen. And then your white blood cells, which are used to fight infection, they're dying off, and the ones that you're not producing them quickly enough at normal speed, and then the ones that are coming out, most of them are, he said, they're half baked. They're like cookies that you put in the oven it's supposed to be 15 minutes, and you have them in there for 7. Sure, they look like cookies, but they don't taste like cookies, and they don't taste like cookie dough. They just taste horrible, and they don't do what they're supposed to do. And I went, okay, so what's the treatment? What's the prognosis and treatment? Because I'm 14, 16-hour days. I need to know so I can plan. And he goes, "Well, we don't know what kind of leukemia you have." And I'm thinking, well, this is blood cancer. How do you not know what kind of blood cancer it is? It's blood cancer. And he said, there's so many different types. And I think I've narrowed it down to a couple, but I don't know which one it is. I'm like, well, isn't the same treatment? You go in and they shoot you with radiation. You're like, no, the treatments are so different that I can't, if I give you the one, it might not treat if it's the other. Well, how do you find that out? And it was a bone biopsy. And at this point in my life, I'd never broken a bone. And that was something I was very proud of. The life I'd lived, all the risks and the crazy activities I'd done, because I was thinking I was going to die young, that I'd never broken a bone. And I was pretty happy with that. They said, well, we need to do that. I'm like, is there any other way we can find it out? Nope. And I'm like, okay, how's it done? He goes, well, we take a big needle. I'm like, okay, no, you have to break a bone. You have to use a giant needle. These are like two horrible things. And at this point, the Cheryl was coming with me to attend these meetings with the oncologist. And she goes, "Hon, you need to do this. Voice of reason here." And I went, okay. So they agreed to knock me out so I wouldn't see the needle or feel the needle. And they did. And they said, okay, you have acute promyelocytic leukemia, so APL. It is one of the rarest forms of leukemia that there is, and until recently was the deadliest form of leukemia because it comes on quick. It's really sneaky. Sometimes you get leukemia and you can have it for years, but APL you have for months. You have it for a few weeks or a few months, and then you're dead because it comes on that quickly.
Wow.
So they found out what it was, and they said, okay. And they took some blood samples then, some more. And this guy said, look, after the results, after I'd come back and realized I now had something sticking out of my arm, some catheter sticking out of my arm, he looked at Cheryl and was like, okay, you need to wrap this guy in bubble wrap and then put towels around him and then take him straight to the hospital, to Sacred Heart in Spokane, to the ICU. I've already called ahead. They're expecting you. Don't do anything else. Get him there. So I knew it was pretty serious. I didn't know at that time how serious. And he was a good, nice Christian man. And he says, can I pray with you? And we prayed right there. And he said, you need to get him to go now. Don't stop. I mean, don't obey traffic laws, but don't stop. Get him there. And I told him, I was like, hey, Doc, my daughter Shay, she's in preschool or kindergarten. She was going to be singing in a talent show that day at her school. Is it okay if I go to that? He goes, did you just hear me say you need to go straight to the ICU and don't stop for anything? And I said, I know, but Doc, can I go? And he looked in and he goes, yeah, go ahead, stop there, and then immediately go afterwards. I went, okay. And I didn't know at the time why he did that. I just thought he was being nice. But afterwards, I understood why he wanted me to go. So it was great. We were able to go. Shay and Cheryl sang a duet in the talent show. And then we went to the ICU. I had my bag with my work stuff because I was still thinking I had to work. And walked into the ICU just carrying my bag. And I said, hey, my name's James Hendricks. I hear you have room for me. And I hope the mint has already been put on the pillow. But I'm okay if you're still getting over from the last guest. And they'll look at me like, what kind of an idiot are you? Because that's not how you go into an ICU. But I was like, that's how I went in. And they looked at me and said, well, let's see if, and then they immediately, the nurse called the doctor over and they said, well, sorry, you just took us by surprise. We weren't expecting you to be awake, not be in a coma, and not be like coming in on your own. We expected an ambulance to be like pushing you in on a gurney or whatever. I went, oh, well, this must be really serious. So they took me into the ICU and got me going. And that's when I found out that I had about 60% of the blood in my body I was supposed to. And of that 60%, so I mean, I had all the fluid, but the blood portion of that fluid was 60% of what it should be. And then found out that the red blood cells were down about 40-50% of that. So that the platelets were almost gone. And the white blood cells were so low that when people would come in, they'd have to mask up, because if they sneezed, there's a possibility that there was something in that sneeze that would land on, that I would breathe in, and my body wouldn't be able to fight it off. My blood levels were so low that if I had stubbed my toe, I could have died from internal bleeding because I would not have been able to clot. That's how serious it was. So when the doctor said, yeah, go see your daughter sing, he was thinking, yeah, this is a memory she's going to have for the rest of her life and the rest of your life, the short time you have left. He said that if I had gone in 24 to 48 hours later, it would have been too late and I would have died. Wow. So I was there being treated. It was it was a little surreal. And that's when what I shared before about the teenager thinking I was going to die young. I'm going, well, I had the impression that I was going to, be made a high priest and be a member of a bishopric, before I died. And the thought came that, yeah, if I had remained in Lakewood, they were swapping over bishoprics, that I would have been in that bishopric. And later I had the chance to talk to the bishop, and he said, yeah, your name was going to be submitted to be a member of my bishopric, but you said that you were leaving, so I swapped it out for somebody else. I went, oh. So then I realized, because I'm having these thoughts while I'm being treated, and the thought came, is this the time? Was this just a teenage thing, or was this really the Spirit letting me know? And it was, no, it's your time. If you want to go, you can go. And I realized I'd done most of what I'd wanted to do. My patriarchal blessing, other than being resurrected, was complete.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay. And I worried. I'm like, okay, well, if I go, thankfully I have good life insurance policies at the time. So Cheryl will be taken care of. But I said, well, what about my wife? What about Cheryl? And it was, don't worry about her. She's going to be good. And I realized, I realized she's spiritual, she's smart, she's beautiful. People are going to be falling all over themselves. Like, oh, you're single? Great. And I don't have to worry about an ex-husband who's a jerk. I just have to worry about an ex-husband who's dead. So I knew that she would find somebody and have her pick, really, of eligible men. And I felt really calm about that she would have this support. And then I go, what about my kids? And I was able to see the struggle they would have, with their dad being taken away.
Mm-hmm.
And then the struggle they would have for that time where they didn't have a father, and then when they have a stepfather, and how their life would not be what it could be.
So was it during this time that you felt like you were given a choice whether to stay or go?
Yeah. And that's what it felt like.
Yeah. And in that choice, you were almost given like, this is what would happen if you choose this, and this is what would happen if you choose that kind of
Yeah.
scenario. And and this was all in the hospital?
Yeah, it was in the ICU. That
Oh.
first day. Before my ministering brothers came and gave a blessing, I saw this. And I knew that while Cheryl would be okay, not great, but she'd be okay. She'd live a good life. I knew that my kids would struggle more than they should. And I didn't want somebody else raising my children. So I said, if it's all right, if it's okay, I'd like to stay. I know that changes the whole narrative that I'd had since I was a teenager, and the whole dying in glory, but it was something that I felt I should do. And I was told, okay. And I knew from then, no matter what the blood test said, no matter what the doctors said, that I'd be fine. That it wasn't my time to die anymore. So from that point, everybody was, from that point in treatment on, everybody was, well, you're so upbeat. Well, you're so positive. And it was a teaching hospital, so students would come around and they'd look at my blood tests And they'd look at me and like, how are you still alive? How are you awake even? And it was because I knew I wasn't going to die. So at that time, they got the ICU got tired of the fact that I wasn't dying or wasn't in a coma. I didn't need intensive care. So they and me, we hatched a plan to get me out of the ICU and move me to a regular room. Even though my blood tests, I was still very susceptible to infection. My body could not fight it off. They moved me to another room out of the ICU after a couple of days, which was awesome. And they put me on treatment. The treatment was atra and arsenic. So atra, that it's when it's not used for treating leukemia, it's used for teenagers usually. It helps dry out their skin. So if you have a lot of acne, you're often prescribed atra to help reduce the oils. And then arsenic, which is what killed the leukemia. A side effect of the atra is it makes you very photosensitive. So I've seen that in my life where when I was receiving treatment, I had to stay in the shade because I'd go in the sun and immediately I'd turn pink, just like
Wow.
right away. And even now, I get sun exhaustion really easily, where I have to wear like big hats if I'm going to be outdoors, because I just get completely wiped out if there's a lot of sun. So a lingering effect of the treatment. But I was in my room.
Oh, so that's so how long have has it been since the treatment?
So the last
Like
treatment
when
was 10 years ago in
oh, okay.
2015. So it's been 10 years. So it, the arsenic, I was foggy. It would make my brain foggy, where
Mm,
when I would talk, I would struggle with words or putting things together. And that
Mm.
mm.
happened, or that kept for about another year or so. But the atra, the effects of that, it's still happening. Like I said,
Oh,
I've,
so the atra is what causes your skin to be very sensitive to the sun.
yeah.
Interesting.
So in
Interesting.
Western Washington, it's rainy now because it's winter time. But in the
Yeah.
summer, I would go out, and when I do yard work, I have a special hat that I bought
Mm,
from a West African booth at the Puyallup Fair, where it's supposed to help you with sun, and it keeps the sun off me when I'm outdoors working. So while I was getting treatment, again, you're coming from a working 14-hour, 16-hour days to this.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I didn't like to be not busy. So I had them bring in a an exercise bike, and I get on the exercise bike, and I'd exercise bike or exercise do that in the room,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, I'd go on walks if they'd allow me to, but they didn't they didn't like me walking because my blood levels were still so low that they felt if I fell, I could bruise, and then
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't stop bleeding. So exercise bike it was, and everyone was so surprised by how much energy and how well I looked compared to what the blood results were saying how I should be.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
again, I knew I knew I wasn't going to die because I'd had that
I want to I
confirmation.
want to touch I want to touch on that a little bit, just because a couple things come up. Um, because you're not the first person that I have had basically witness or testify to the fact that they were given a choice, whether to live or die. And so I find that actually quite fascinating. And I'm always curious if that's a choice that we all are given, or if there's like a certain type of person that he allows that, or you know what I mean. I don't know, but I've heard people, obviously not people who have chose if they chose to die, then they don't have the
Yeah,
opportunity to witness that to me, but those that have were given the choice and chose to live. Um, I've heard of that a lot, and so including and I don't know if Milena, if you're aware of this, but our cousin, her husband, she learned about that
Mhm.
actually because he chose to pass, but she was told in a blessing that he chose that.
Oh,
And
I
she was
didn't know that.
actually, yeah, she was actually angry that for a little bit that he would choose to die and leave her, you know, she
Yeah.
was pregnant, she had a kid and all that.
Mm.
But I think like when I look back at that, I'm like he he was um he was buried in an avalanche, and so what if he would have chose to live, he would have chose to live under um you know, maybe he would have been paralyzed, maybe he would have, you know, not been, he would have been under a condition that he
Yeah.
was like
No, thank you.
he didn't want to be a burden on his wife, right? And so and I don't mean to sabotage your story. I'm just saying I'm just witnessing to that because I think a lot of people might think that that's odd that um you know, that you're witnessing that you got a choice. But I'm just saying that I've heard that
Yeah.
quite a bit. Like for example, my neighbor actually, his father just passed this week, and he he's not even a member of the church, and he found that it was interesting that he could tell his dad was holding on,
Mm.
and he had the thought to tell him, you know, your daughter, his, you know, my neighbor's sister, she's not coming, so if you're waiting for her to come and visit you, she's not coming. And within 15 minutes of him saying that, he passed.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard stories like that.
Yeah, and so I think that I think we have, and I want to tap into the idea of, you know, because you mentioned how you just knew, right? And I think that we don't give credit to the power of our own brains,
Yeah.
of you choosing, right? You choosing, I'm gonna live. Like you just were determined, and all of the numbers, everything was saying that you shouldn't be walking around, you shouldn't be
Yeah.
alive. Everything is pointing to the fact that you shouldn't be here, but you were, and you were thriving. And that again is just a testament to the power of our thoughts, the power of our brain, and the power of faith
Yeah.
that is associated with all of that. I don't know if that makes any sense. And I think that within that power of choosing, like I choose to stay or I choose to leave, it's all within our power,
Yeah. Mm.
which makes sense because we know that agency is so huge, and he's given us agency from point A, right? Why would agency, and I'm kind of thinking out loud that I'm realizing that maybe everyone does have this choice because we have the choice to come into the world, and why
Yeah.
wouldn't we have the choice to leave this world?
Right.
Why would choice ever be taken away from us? That's never something
Interesting thought.
he's presented. So um
Well,
anyways,
also,
that's just
even when we pass on, we hear that we still have a choice. We still he he is a God of agency. We had a like you
mhm,
said, we had a choice whether to come here on earth, whether to
mhm,
not. Here on earth, we have choices to do pretty much whatever. You know, we don't have the choice
mhm,
of the consequences, but he
right.
is a God of choices, and even when we pass on, he's not going to be like, well, that's what you chose, so sorry, you know, type of a attitude. It's we will still have choices when we pass on. We have the choice to accept the gospel. of Jesus Christ or not. We will have the choice. I mean, so many choices. You know, he is not a God of I'm going to control you type of thing. It is very much a
Yeah.
I love you. I want you to be happy. I want you to be where you want to be, you know, type of a situation. So that's incredible that you were given
Yeah.
that opportunity to choose. It's amazing. Yeah.
Thank you. So
I'd like to hear. I don't know if you're finished with your story and you can come back to, but I would like to hear your wife's perspective,
good.
Cheryl's perspective,
Yeah, that's
during
that's what I was going to
this whole
say.
process.
Yeah, there's another side to the story.
Better
Absolutely, there
side.
always is.
So I am not the type of a person to see symptoms and immediately rush to the emergency room or urgent care or anything like that. But I did notice some concerning things happening with James before he decided to go and see his doctor. So going back to the beginning of his story, some of the things that he did for his job where they had these big cases full of equipment that they had to carry and load onto vans and unload from the vans and unpack. And I started noticing him coming home with bruises on his arms and bruises on his legs. I'm like, why do you have so many bruises? He's like, oh, it's just from carrying this big equipment, you know, and I could see, okay, a bruise here and there, but it seemed like a lot more than what would be normal. But I thought, okay, you know, he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's been working with. If he says it's from that, fine. And then he did come home for a bit, and he had to take some sick time because he had developed a cough. And it was kind of a concerning cough. And then at one point he coughed up and there was blood. And I was like, oh, that's, yeah, you don't remember that?
I remember that.
Yeah, that's why you didn't tell that part of the story.
That makes sense.
And I was like, that's not right. And then, you know, getting to the point where he brushed his teeth and came out and he had that blood all over his gums. And I was like, you look like a vampire. And he's like, no, my teeth always bleed when I brush my teeth. I just brush hard. And he was just like dismissing any of my concerns. And I'm like,
A
really?
typical dude.
Right. And so he wasn't going to see a doctor. He thought, I just need to rest. I've been working really hard. I'm just going to rest and I'll get better if I just sleep. And at this time I was finishing up my master's degree. And so I was up either really late or up really early working on my studies. And while I was on the computer, I decided to just look up these symptoms and realizing in the back of my mind that these are red flags for leukemia, and I didn't want it to be leukemia. So I was looking for any alternative that it could be. And it kept coming back. And I thought, okay, just to be safe, we really do need to get this checked out. And so after talking for a while and finally convincing him, and I think he just wanted me to be quiet. He just wanted me to stop nagging him about it. He's like, fine, I will go see the doctor. I'll see this person who we already know. I'm not going to go see somebody new. And so he goes with the cough, you know, with the symptom of the cough. And the doctor says, well, I think it's probably just, what was it, bronchitis or some kind of lung infection. And so I'm going to prescribe you an antibiotic. And he goes, oh, good. My wife thought it was leukemia. You know, she's on the internet researching, and they had a little chuckle about it. And then he said, well, let me take a blood sample, you know, just to be safe. And then that's when it comes back that indeed there was some red flags in his blood samples that it could be leukemia, but then they had to have him come back for some more testing to confirm. Um, and yes, that was hard to hear when that diagnosis came in.
Yeah.
And we had only known about, one kind of leukemia, that it was blood cancer, and that, there's, to our knowledge, not a cure for it, and that it would require some intensive therapy. And so we were not looking forward to that. So we did learn a lot in the process with this wonderful oncologist who, like James had mentioned, he was a Christian man, and he understood that we were of Christian faith, and so really walked that path with us, talking to us, about mortality, and really teaching us about the medical side that he knew about, and what his process was, and his learning path was in dealing with James, because it was the first time that he had the patient with this particular type of leukemia, and he had to do a lot of research to make sure that he treated him properly. But also he was just such a good person, and there with his heart too. So that was really great to have that. And it was interesting because I always felt that we needed to make that move to Spokane. When he had all these options, we just felt like, yeah, Spokane is it. I had lived there before. I really liked it. Yeah. And in retrospect, I feel like if he didn't have that person that we knew from our branch presidency that he felt confident in going to see, that he would have delayed those couple of extra days that would have taken his life.
I'd have died.
And it was just the right place and the right time for him to be able to see the right person, and refer him to the right oncologist. It was all of these connections that were lined up just right for him to get the help that he needed and the support that we needed emotionally and spiritually through that process.
Yeah, and I want to touch bases on the whole choice thing again. Because obviously he had the choice, he felt like he was given the choice to live or die. But he also, in the very beginning had a choice whether to go to the doctors or not, right? So this is another way that choice plays into what is happening with us. Like if you wouldn't have chose to go to Spokane, or wouldn't have chose to go to see this friend doctor, you know what I mean? There's so many choices along the way, which is just, again, reiterates in my brain that choice is such an important part of our life.
Yeah.
And it continues and will continue on the afterlife.
Yeah.
Yes. And I would add that I had sensed his feeling of it would be okay if I passed away. And I was like, no. I'm not going to accept that. And
Don't go
you need
there.
to remember what you have to live for. And so we had some family pictures that we had taken at different points and different ages of the kids' lives. And so I pulled up some pictures and I put little phrases on them to kind of inspire and motivate him to remember what there was here for him to be here for.
To encourage a choice.
Yeah. And so I went and I took those and had them large printed up, and I took them to his room and put them up on his wall where he could see them when he's laying in his bed, to remind him every day that we're there for him and we need him to be there for us too.
That's amazing, the influence that you had on that, and on him in that regard. And this sounds like it, and maybe this next question is going to seem a little dumb, but I just want to give you a chance to really tell us, like, what you thought was. There's a lot of, obviously there was a lot of hardship, but from each of you, what was the hardest challenge personally that you had to overcome through this?
I to pinpoint one.
I know, I
I
know.
felt very heavily burdened and yet prepared because I was just ending my master's degree and getting my teacher certification. And I was at this point where I was like, okay, this is the plan if he lives, and this is the plan if he doesn't. And so I think the challenge was being able to accept whatever Heavenly Father's decision was in that, and trusting in him to be there for me.
Yeah.
And it was a challenge and a blessing at the same time, right? Often
Yeah.
we see those hand in hand.
Yeah. I was just going to say, it sounds like that sometimes it feels like our biggest challenge is where we probably feel the most of his support. Does
Right.
that make sense? Like we're faced with a challenge, and there's so many people that say, the Lord will never give us anything that we can't handle. And I had a friend who struggled with that saying, that he'll never give us a challenge that we can't handle. And the reason why they struggled with that is because their friend had committed suicide. And to them, they were like, clearly they couldn't handle what was given to them. And I think she changed that phrase to, we can handle anything with the Lord.
Right.
Like, he's never going to give us anything that we can't handle, but it is our responsibility. It is our choice to lean on him and come to him for the support. And I think that obviously this was very challenging for the both of you. But it's that leaning in towards him versus away from him that is where we will gain our biggest support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can do all things through Christ.
I was just going to say, part of the challenge and accepting and being prepared took us to a crossroads, because I felt that, okay, I need to get a job, right? Because I need to, at that point, he was our sole provider. Now he's not working. Now he's in a hospital, and I've got 3 children to support. So I got to get a job. And I had my, he was still in the hospital, and my mom came to take care of the kids so I can finish up my last papers. And I had finished all the work that I need to get my teacher certification. But Spokane is full of a lot of teacher colleges. And so you have a lot of different graduates fighting for any teaching positions that might be available. And I was putting my application out. I was sending emails, even at the school where I had done my student teaching, not even invited to an interview. I was getting nothing, crickets everywhere. And I thought, well, this isn't going to work. We're away from family, and he's not working, and I don't have a job lined up. And so I had contacted some connections that I had from where we had lived in Lakewood, and was able to get an interview there for a teaching position. And so I went over for the interview, and I took the kids and stayed with my parents. And then I was offered the job, and I had to decide, okay, he's getting treatment in Spokane, but I have this job over here on the other side of the state. Are we going to be able to be apart? Can we do both things? And that was a big challenge.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know which way it was going to go. And I wanted to be there to support him through what he was going through. But I also had to make sure I kept taking care of our children, and that we were prepared for whatever was in store. So I went back and we talked about it, and he was able to make arrangements to stay with family that lived outside of Spokane quite a ways, but it was still closer to the oncology office where he was receiving the treatment, so that he could continue to do that. And we moved over, and I was able to get support from my family with the kids so that I could take that teaching job and start my career, to be able to be prepared for that. Are you ready for your challenge now? Was that along the lines of
it
what
really
you were gonna
was.
say?
The two main challenges. I know you asked for one.
No, that's fine. You can give me two.
There was an immediate, and then there's a longer term one. The immediate one was, I can't help my family. And I'd always had a lot of energy, which is why I identify so well with Melina's youngest son, because I was a kid, a lot of energy, very smart, don't like being contained. And whenever I see kids like that, I'm like, wow, you guys really got it going, because especially when you get older, you need all that energy. So being able to have that is great. And then I don't. When my family, when we moved, or when they moved from where we were living in Spokane back to Puyallup, I couldn't help. And for someone who is very physical, and I have a sense of pride in the fact that I work hard, and I like to do that, to not be able to help my own family. And then Cheryl and the kids are living apart, and I can't be there. And I've been very explicit, like, Lord, I want to help raise my children, and I can't. That was very hard for me, to just trust that, Lord, other people have to do this. Angels will come, and I can't do it all. And trust that he would be able to bless us while we're apart, that people would be able to step in and step up when they were needed. And that kind of goes with the second one, which was longer term. Like, okay, well, what now? My whole life I've been thinking I'm going to die when I'm, early 40s. I want to make sure I have I joke about this, but I tell this to my children, that I was looking for a partner, that if we were in pioneer times, and I was called to be in the Mormon battalion, I know that my wife would be able to march with our kids along the plains, going towards, the land of Deseret, or wherever it is we're going to stop. And I could feel comfortable with that. And here it was. I was married with somebody who had to march our kids across the state and raise them while I was still in near Spokane getting treatment. And what happens then? If you've done everything, if you look at a patriarchal blessing as a checklist, as you've been promised, you'll be this person, you'll marry, in the temple, you'll have these callings, and you look at that as a checklist, and it's all done. Well, what then? Where do you go from there? What's the you've asked to be here on earth. Well, what do you do with the rest of your life when you hadn't been planning for the rest of your life? My body right now, it's pretty broken. I broke my ankle a few years ago, but I've had arthritis for almost 25 years. Because it's when I talked to the guy at Swedish, I said, I'm in my early 20s. How do I have arthritis? He goes, well, you don't take care of yourself. You don't do stretches. You don't warm up or cool down. It's just the wear and tear on your body that have caused this to happen. So that's great if you're only going to live to your early 40s. But now you keep going on and on and on and advancing in your life, and you go, okay, this is not enjoyable. Where you wake up in the morning and you hurt all over because you didn't take care of yourself when you were younger, because you didn't think you needed to,
Yeah.
you know, and how it is that when we do yard work or big projects around the house, I'm relying more on my children to do the things because they bounce back quicker than I do. I could do them, but it would take me longer, and it would take me a lot longer to recover than it does them. And for me,
Yeah.
that's the challenge. What do I do now? Because I have to change how I was to handle the new reality in which I find myself.
Yeah. Interesting. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, no, I think just as you were telling your story, how amazing, and I think a lot of times we just go through life and we don't realize how much we have spirit or guardian angels guiding us with our choices. I mean, you guys talked about how you had a lot of choices and all these things are kind of falling into place. But I think one thing that it is very easily overlooked is how much the spirit does guide us. Like I a lot of times it isn't just this, an angel comes down and is right in front of you and tells you, but it's just those
Yeah.
small and simple things. I mean, all those things that led you guys to Spokane, all those things that led you, each step of the way, how much you were guided. And I think for all of us, we don't recognize how much we're being guided. And maybe as we look back, we can say, oh, all these little coincidences, right? Coincidentally, that it really wasn't. They aren't coincidences. We have
Yeah.
angels, ministering angels all about us, organizing and probably at the moment just making orchestrating so many things for our future, right? I mean, I think a lot of us just kind of go through life and we don't realize how much Christ, how much the Spirit is active in our life. And I
Yeah.
think I think that is highlighted throughout your story of just how much you guys were guided. Being guided, I think you said to Spokane, where there was that the branch president who was a doctor. You don't want to see a doctor, but he happened to be somebody that you were like, okay, I'll go see him. And then the I think you said the oncologist who was not a
Yeah.
member of our faith, but was Christian just like we are, and so he had kind of that being a little bit more in tune with understanding, and he was being guided by the Spirit. And so, I think it's important for each one of us to kind of reflect on our lives, um, and look back and see, where were all those coincidences.
Yeah.
Right, Melina. It's that reflection is so important because it's hard to see it in the moment.
Oh, yeah.
When you're in the panic, when you're in the stress, in the trauma, you
Yeah.
can't see all of those things lined up, especially if they're ahead of you. But when you look
Right.
back and you see all those things lined up in a row, it's too much just to be coincidence. You can really see God's
Yeah.
hand in the
Right.
guidance, in the healing, in the
Mm-hmm.
peace, in everything that comes from it.
Well, and even in
And
the hardships that you face, right? I mean, because the
Right.
the really difficult moments, those moments where it just feels like, what are you doing, Lord? This really sucks. Like, just, can you stop for a minute? Just
yeah.
the pain and the fire that we have to walk through. But as we go through it and we look back, at least for me, I'm able to kind of see, like, oh, I see why I had to do that. I see why that happened to me, because it strengthens you. It's all these difficult moments. And like you said, Melinda, earlier, that, we all have choices. And if we choose to, in those dark moments, in those moments where we are walking through fire, we reach out to the Savior. We reach out through prayer. We reach out to Him, that He is able to bring about miracles. He is able to heal us. He is able to strengthen us. So, James was not only being tried and tested through this, but also you, Cheryl. I mean, look at how much stronger you are going through this. I mean, it's incredible.
It definitely takes those challenges to strengthen us and lift us up and help us realize our potential that maybe we're not originally reaching for until we're challenged to meet that.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, could you touch on what you learned about yourself during this and what you learned about God?
So something I've learned about myself and about God is that we matter, to Him. If you think about God, that here's this being who controls the universe, makes sure everything runs in place, has control over everything, and that on just this earth, this planet, there's over 7 billion people, and that He cares enough. My heavenly parents love me enough and care about me enough that they're going to put things in place to help me be alive, to say you should go to Spokane instead of staying here in Lakewood and getting the new place, knowing that I would not have gone to a doctor in Lakewood, but I would go to the guy I knew in Spokane. And this is months. I had no symptoms. I had nothing at that point. But He guided me to do that. So when the time came, I had the choice to go to Spokane. I had the choice to go to this doctor. I had all these choices, and things were put in place long before I got to where I made that choice. So does God care about you? Does He love you? Absolutely He does. As Melinda, as you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of people that have experiences of choosing life or choosing to pass. And I don't think it's just us. I don't think we're some unique super people. I think God truly cares. And we're just ones that are sharing it, that have had that option. But God wants us to be happy, and He wants us to have those choices, that opportunity to grow, to, as Cheryl said, to reach our potential. And we have to go through hard things. But as we step back and we look in hindsight at what we've gone through, we see those steps. We see the help that heaven has put in our way to help us get that. And the next time, as Cheryl said, when we're in there and it's so busy and it's so chaotic and we might not see it, we'll just remember, hey, this is what happened last time. And God didn't stop caring about me from last time to this time. He still loves me. So this time, I can get through it because He helped me get through it last time. And then the next time He'll help me get through that. And then the next time after that. And every time after we go through something, as we see the steps, we see His fingerprints, His hands, and that'll just keep adding layer upon layer, testimony upon testimony that'll help us get through the next time, and then the next time, and then after that, until that glorious day when we are able to meet him again and thank him face to face for for all he's done for us, and share that with him. And that's my testimony. And that's what I've learned about myself and about God. And I say that in the name of my Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, James and Cheryl, for sharing your story, for being brave and coming on here to share with us how heaven has helped you. I just want to wrap all of this up and touch on a few things that you mentioned about hardship and choice. I've come to realize that the Lord actually wants us to go through hardship because it is in the hardship where we grow. One might think also that, I didn't choose this. Yet, if we look at all of our choices that we have made in this life, it all leads up to where we are today. But I also don't want our listeners to get hung up on choice either, because that's something I have done in the past and continually do from time to time. But I want everyone to realize that the Lord compensates and helps correct any choice we make. We're not free of the consequences of our choices, but we are free to choose and then choose again. We are free to choose. We're not free to choose our consequences, but we are free to choose time and time again. That is what is so great, because time and repentance, or change as I like to put it, is one of the greatest blessings that God has given us. Adam and Eve were given a choice and then given another choice after that. And so it goes with us. So we don't need to fear choice. We need to embrace it and learn from it and make another choice after that. This is what I help my clients do on a daily basis. I lay out the choices they have made and I help them make another choice that better suits them. And it sounds like this is what you have done. Thank you for sharing your journey on hardship and choice. Heaven helps us all get through this life, despite the choices that we make. That's the joy of the gospel of Jesus Christ.
I appreciate you guys sharing this tender story, and it's been such an incredible journey. So thank you so much for coming on. Hopefully we can all look back and see heaven's help in our lives, because they are there. He is there for sure. All right. Thank you so much. We love you. We love you all.